big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find out more about them from their website mrvickies.co.uk or by calling 01768 210 102. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. And thanks to United Group Travel, UK coach holiday firm based in Bournemouth. There's no strangers on their tours, just people you haven't met yet. They're now taking bookings for 2024. You can call 01670 632 460, 0791 666 4174 or 07957 141 654, or go to the website unitedgrouptravel.com. Please subscribe to the channel. Hit the subscribe button underneath the video today. We still do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up under the video to like it. It does us a big favour. Click share to share to your other social media and let people know about NUFC Matters. We're also a podcast. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify and other podcast providers. If you want to help the show financially, you can take out a £25 one-off membership. You get a scarf, a pen, a cup and a membership card. How do you get it? Go to nufcmatters.com, look for membership. If you've got a smartphone, then put your smartphone over the QR code and it will take you straight to that section on the website. We also support the food bank on this channel. You can donate to the food bank today by going to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. We do support events on this channel as well. If you've got an event, please send it in and we'll promote it. The Tyne Theatre and Opera House are doing a Keegan, Beardsley and Waddle event, the Class of 84, 25th of January 2024. Book now by calling 0844 249 1000. And the Tyneside Irish Centre, they're doing an event with Frank Clark and John Gibson on Thursday, December the 7th. You can get tickets from nufcmatters.com and they are priced at £15. There's also some tickets available on Groupon. Don't forget, you can catch me 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, with Rye, Dave and Daz on the Northeast Footy Brekkie Show, 7 till 9, and you can catch us on the Red, the Toon and the Cat and on Toon Radio's website. WhatsApp us on the day 0330 043 2002, the perfect way to start your day. We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words that make...
Good afternoon, welcome along to NUFC Matters. This is the Eddie Howe press conference review for the Bournemouth match away tomorrow 5:30 kickoff, and it is live on the Sky Television. So Eddie Howe's press conference, as always, took place this morning. Matthew Raisbeck from BBC Radio Newcastle was first up, and he asked how Callum Wilson was doing. He said, yep, he's been called up for England, but he does have a tight hamstring. We're going to do various tests today and make an assessment on him and decide what is best for the player. Didn't give much away other than that. Asked if there was any more problems with any other players after the Dortmund game. He said, I need to think about it. He went, I've thought about it. No, I can't think of any. How are the injuries hampering you? Asked Razor. He boxed clever on this one. He's not going to criticise any players that he's got that are going to play for him tomorrow, is he? And he just said, look, I've got faith in the squad. One thing that's getting affected is the in-game running. But other than that, yeah, from our perspective, we've got faith in the squad to get the job done tomorrow. Lewis Miley, of course, became the youngest player to play in Europe for Newcastle on Tuesday night in Dortmund. Razor asked him about him. Can he be more prominent with all the injuries that we've got? Can he give us can he get a good run in the team? Eddie agreed. He said he's going to be prominent now. He's going to be prominent for the future. He's a good player, young lad. He says, I thought when he played against Dortmund, he used the ball well, and yeah, he looked good and didn't look out of place. How do you feel, about Newcastle's league position going into this international break as opposed to going into the previous one? Eddie praised the players. Just said the players have done very well. They've had to adjust to personnel going in and out the team. It's been an intense period, as was the previous period before the last international break. But in general, the performances have been strong. We've lost in this period 2 games to Dortmund. I don't think there was much difference between the teams, he said. But other than that, we've progressed in the Carabao Cup, and we've won some Premier League games. So kept the Premier League unbeaten run going. So as far as another half-term report goes, I guess Eddie's very happy. Matthew then asked about Bournemouth, and we got the bog standard Eddie Howe answer for whenever he plays a team. Manager's good. They've got a good setup. The players are good. We're in for a tough game. The stadium is a difficult place to go to. It is often pointless asking it. I know they've got to, but you get the same answer from Eddie. He's not going to be disrespectful to anybody. And is the pressure off you going there as a manager now that you've already managed down there with Newcastle last season? And again, deflects it away from himself. The focus will be on the players. I'm sure the focus is never on me. Our focus and our only focus is to go to Bournemouth tomorrow and win. Keith Downey was next up from Sky. Harked back to the question that Ray's had asked about Callum, pressed him a little bit more. He says, are you saying there's going to be a decision today on Callum? And he said, yes. Simple as that. Any concerns that he's been picked for England? He went, no. We're always in touch with Gareth, as we're in touch with all the international managers about our players, and nothing has changed on that score, and we will be in touch with them, whatever the decision is that we make. Is Isak getting closer? Obviously, he's been out injured, got injured on international duty with his team. Eddie, agreed. Yes, he is. He's building up his load. He's building up his fitness, and his groin seems to be okay. And he's on course to be back for the first game after the international break. Any news on Botman? Yes, there is progression, but there's no news as such. He's been in Holland, getting some specialized treatment. He's back now, but no news on a return date for Botman yet. Keith then asked him, you've got 10 players missing with injuries and suspensions. Have you ever had anything like this? No, was Eddie's answer. Not to this level. It's a difficult one. I don't want to build this up too much. He said, the players we've got to come in are good enough to compete. We just need to hit our levels and we'll be okay. Keith then mentioned that in a week that you've been missing players. You've beaten Arsenal, you've beaten Manchester United, you've run Dortmund close. You must be pleased with that. And Eddie agreed. He said, yeah, players have done well. We've attacked teams, we've attacked the games in the right way. He said, I was a bit disappointed with the Arsenal game because he felt that VAR overshadowed what was a very good performance. And he said, I just wish that, when these VAR situations happen, that people can still, talk about the game as opposed to talking about VAR. Keith then asked about the Premier League clubs who are going to be voting later this month on whether we should temporarily veto loans, from clubs that got a connection with your club. And Eddie boxed clever, wouldn't answer the question. He says, we've been watching the situation, but let's see what happens, with the vote, and I'll leave it to you to speculate. Andy Sixsmith was next, talked about Eddie's 2-year anniversary at the club. Described how it is now as opposed to how it was when you first came. Eddie's answered this question before at a press conference, but he just basically said it's better now. He says, I'm not sure how you handle anniversaries. Andy said badly, but he said you get a realization of how quickly time goes. He says, but it gives you the opportunity to look back at some amazing memories that we've had. And then he just thanked everybody. He thanked the owners, he thanked the players, he thanked the staff, for all the efforts that they've given. And he just said that he hopes that this anniversary is just the beginning, and we'll move on and we'll make more memories together. How has the club and the city impacted you as a person, was Andy's next question. He said, I don't meet many people. I keep a fairly low profile. He says, but the people I have met are so friendly. They've embraced me and my family. He says, I think I've changed slightly. He says, but I'll leave that for other people to decide. But I'm still fully committed to football. Football is my life. I live and breathe it. Andy then mentioned the racist abuse that had took place at the Arsenal game. Quite rightly, Eddie condemned it. The racist abuse towards Willock and Bruno. He just said that there's no place for that in football, and the players were shocked, but they were okay. Andy then asked for an update on Harvey Barnes. He agreed that he's on schedule. He said he started running. He obviously had to let the bone heal in his foot, but he's not going to be too far away from a return after the break, which is good news. It's stuff that had leaked out this week, and ultimately that means that he's going to be back before January, which was the original idea for bringing him back. So it looks like potentially December for Harvey Barnes, which is great news. Do you still look for Bournemouth results? Asked Andy. And do you still feel a link? And of course he's going to. And he said, yes, I've always got a link to Bournemouth, whether that's me or my brother or my nephew. He said, I always look at the results. He says, I always wish them well, always want them to do well, but obviously not when they're playing us. Lee was next. A guy called Lee asked him where he stood on VAR. He just took a sharp intake of breath and said, "Oh, it's a big subject. I don't really want to go anywhere near it." He said, "We just try to work to the best of our ability within the rules of the game." He says, as people know, I was against VAR coming in. He said, and ultimately, I'd love the after-match chat to be about, what players have done or what players haven't done, not VAR or referees. He says, just look back at our match against Arsenal last week. So that's still clearly on his mind. Chris from ITV was next. He mentioned that Newcastle United Supporters Trust had put out a statement with regards to the allocation of tickets for the PSG game being below the 5% that we were hoping for or entitled to, and how disappointed will you be? Eddie hadn't heard of this. He asked for clarification from legal marshal, who then confirmed that that was the case. Eddie just said, it's the first I've heard about it, and then went on to compliment the fans who'd travelled to Dortmund and apologised for not being able to give them a result that the support quite clearly deserved. Lee Ryder was next. He wanted to know about Marcel Bout coming in on the recruitment side. Can you shed any light on it? Eddie said he wasn't directly involved in recruitment. It's not his remit. It wouldn't be impacting on first team. He believes it's for recruitment for younger players, but any player that can come in and help build the club up is a welcome. Any member of staff behind the scenes that can come in is a welcome addition, he said. How important is it for you to have a say on which players come in for the first team? Eddie agreed it's a necessity for him and his coaching staff to have a degree of control, and they want to be across every transfer that Newcastle United decide on. He then moved on to the Bournemouth game, Lee Ryder, and talked about the result last season. It was a draw. He said, from your perspective, is that what you're looking for? Eddie said, look, I want to win. every game. You know, we desperately want to win. He says, but if you know, if you can't get the win, then you don't want to lose, and you know that's the next best thing, a draw. So he said last year that point was a well-earned point. He said, you know, if I remember rightly, we were stretched a little bit with our squad, you know, and we came on strong towards the end of the game. We got a well-deserved point, and he says that point was very important come the end of the season. So from my perspective, yeah, you know, we are going there to win. Craig Hope was next. This was hilarious. He tried 3 different ways to ask the same question, but was quite blasé and open about it. With regards to the potential, you know, the potential vote with regards to the transfer of players, and then another rule that they're trying to bring in, he mentioned with regards to sponsorship. Again, Eddie's not going to answer it. He just said it's difficult for me to give chapter and verse on that. He said, I'd rather you just drew your own conclusions. He then tried to ask in a different way. He said, you know, since the takeover, do you think these things have been brought in to combat you because they're worried about you? He said, look, I don't know what the motivation is. We just try to do our best within the rules that are laid down. Whatever the Premier League say we've got to do, we do. So he didn't get an answer. Scott then asked about Yankuba Minte, asking whether there was any interest in bringing him back in January. Eddie said he would look at all options. He said he's done very well out there, but he's injured at the moment. He's back here for an assessment, but we'll be going back out there. He has developed. He has scored goals. And, you know, ultimately the Premier League's different to any other league, but that doesn't mean that he can't come here and hit the ground running. He's got the kind of athletic profile that we're looking for. So, yeah, there'll be a decision made on all loan players, he said, you know, in January. And if anybody can come in and help us progress, then, you know, we will cross that bridge when we come to it. George Colgan was next, again, pushed back, holding the baton, this was called. He was holding the baton for Craig's question, asked it in a different way. You know, does it feed the narrative about, you know, rules being brought in for Newcastle not to be able to compete and do stuff? And, you know, you know, does it motivate the team as a whole to do well? And Eddie just said, look, you know, that we use different motivation methods, but that's not one of them. Does it motivate people at the club maybe to progress and do better? You know, when these things are changed, yeah, maybe it does, but you know, that's not our job. You know, our job is the football. Again, it's out of our remit. George asked him if he wanted to pay tribute to the players that he inherited, who've come in and done a job during this injury crisis. Eddie again wouldn't pick out individuals. He said there's too many to mention, but he says collectively this team and squad has done fantastically well. He says those who haven't played for long periods and then come in have benefited from watching the team and being part of the training setups. And you know, ultimately it's a collective. He didn't want to pick anybody out. Luke Edwards was next. He congratulated Eddie on 2 years of not being able to let anything slip as regards team selection, which Eddie found hilarious. In fact, when Luke was announced as the person who was asking the question, he says, I think we've run out of time, haven't we? Which caused a great deal of mirth and humour amongst the press corps. He then said, I'm going to ask Craig's question in a slightly different way. You know, Amanda Stabley said that, you know, the teams in the Premier League don't like competition. Is it fair to say you've ruffled a few feathers? You know, again, Eddie just said, look, I can't really answer this. You know, our that's not our world. The rules and regs, we just follow them. I just work on the football pitch. And he says, yeah, but you did say you're here to compete. And he says, yeah, he says, we are here to compete. And, you know, we'll do the best we can with the resources that we have got. We will respect the rules. It's not for me not to respect the rules. And, you know, again, he just swerved it, didn't answer the question, didn't want to answer the question, didn't want to get drawn into it, just, you know, gave enough to say, look, that's not my side of things. All I do is concentrate on the football. Martin Hardy then said he was going to pick up the baton for Craig, and he said, well, go for it. Let's keep going. Does this potentially alter your plans for January if they do vote for loan players from clubs that you're involved with? That wouldn't be allowed to happen. He said, I haven't got any plans for January. He says, there's too much going on at the minute. It moves, you know, it's moving week after week with different injuries. He says, but genuinely, we do not have any plans for January at this moment in time. Dan Ashworth had mentioned Neves. Do you admire him as a player? He He says, yes, of course. I admired him when he was at Wolves. Left it at that. And then Martin asked about the Champions League. He says, the way it's gone, do you think you should have got more experience in it at the start of the season? He says, it's always easy with hindsight to start making comments like that. He said, but I'm still convinced that in the summer, we made the right calls and signed the right players. Simon Bird was next. And again, he just said, are you fighting and opposing the rules that potentially could come in? Lee Marshall jumped in. He basically said, we can't answer that kind of question. We can't speak for the people who are running the club. That's up for them to say. Eddie just basically said you can make that assumption if you wish. So he just, again, no answer to that question. Jordan was next. He said he dropped the baton, so that he was moving on from Craig Hope's original question. How do you replace Bruno? He said you can't replace him with another Bruno, but you can replace him with a different player. But he's such a big player for us. Jordan then asked him, well, how do you cope without Bruno? And he said, it's not easy. I can't give you an answer on that. He says, you'll just have to wait and see, and then we can come back and discuss it. Louise Taylor was next. Eddie Howard, on his sabbatical from management, had gone out to watch Bournemouth's manager. She said, was that part of a watershed for you? Did you learn anything from it and his high pressing game? And he said, no, because when you watch others work, you've got your own philosophy. He says, my core principles have always been the same. They've never changed. He said, we've added layers to them, of course. He says, but yeah, he's a good manager. I respect him. And the answer was no to our question. Did he consult you before he took the Bournemouth job? No. That was his answer on that. Then she went on to Neves. The fact that Neves is playing where he is playing and didn't go to a top club, does that show that he's not he's not the kind of player that would buy into the pressing game that you play? Eddie just said, I'm reluctant to go into that because he's not my player. Simple as that. Dominic then came in. Dominic Skur, asked him about Willock. What did he think about his recent games? He said, yeah, very good. Excellent comeback. Good running stats. Everything that we wanted to see and a bit more. He's come back the same player, which is great. He got 75 minutes the other night, and that will do him the world of good. Dominic then asked him about Matt Targett. He's had surgery now. Is the 3 months layoff going to be accurate? And he went, yeah. He's got a little bit of pain. It is going to be difficult to say, but 3 months is the estimate. Any update on Jacob Murphy? He was asked by Dominic as well. He's had non-invasive keyhole surgery, and he is going to be out for 8 or 9 weeks. Kieran was next up and last on the day, and it was a slightly shorter press conference, only 27 minutes today. He asked about Arteta. Did his comments take away the praise that you were hoping to get? And he went, the whole Storm did. He says, and the same happened the next night in the Tottenham-Chelsea game. Everybody was talking about VAR, and he clearly wishes that people weren't. Are you open to signing players from Saudi was the last question of the day. And he went, I'm open to sign any players from anywhere as long as they are good enough. Big shout out to everybody in the chat. As always, hi, Kevin. Hope you're well. Trulls, Jason, Stuart. Hope you're well, mate. And see the Bonds might be back soon. That would be great. Agree. We do need a few new additions. We need another midfielder to replace Tonali as well. It would be nice to see Miley get a run out, says Jason. Give him some minutes to help him grow as a player. I saw him last night at the Sport Newcastle dinner. What a great young lad he is. Won an award and speaks very well. Got a wise head on young shoulders. Derek, morning. The reporter sounded proper salty because they're not getting the answers to the daft questions. I've got to agree, Derek. Okay, the Three Amigos is back tonight. 2 hours, as always. We're back live, 5 o'clock. Whatever you're doing this afternoon, have a good one. See you then. Don't forget to subscribe.